The content on this day trading YouTube channel is for educational purposes only. It should not be considered as financial advice. Day trading involves substantial risk, and past performance is not indicative of future results. Consult a qualified professional before engaging in any trading activities. We do not guarantee the accuracy or reliability of the information provided, and trading should only be done with capital you can afford to lose. By accessing this channel, you agree to take full responsibility for your own trading decisions.
All right. So, Pharma bro Martin Shkreli believes that quantum is cap. He's calling cap on quantum, and he believes that if you invest into it, you're nothing but a dirty, filthy bag holder. All right. So, we're going to get into this, and I'm going to give you my opinion on it, and I'm going to just heads up. I think he's right. So, let's get into what he has to say, and we'll comment on what he's got to say.
Personally have no horse in this race unless there's something in my passive index funds probably reflected. I hear both sides of the argument, so I'll be sort of playing moderator here. Martin, let's start with you. Bearish on IonQ, D-Wave, people we talk about, have on the show often. Briefly just explain why, you said before the show you think it's a scam. Why is that?
Yeah, so quantum computing is something that I think nobody really actually understands. It's something that sounds like a cool fantasy, but in reality, it's a very different thing from what it sounds like.
So I will say this much: I have a tendency to agree with him because I don't know much about quantum. Only thing I know is that typical computers operate in binary, which is zeros and ones, and quantum somehow can operate through a series of numbers and in different 3D or dimensions. I believe that's about all I know. So that's not much, and I think that's most. I think that's actually probably a little bit more than what most people know. So I think he's right on that.
What it actually is, it's a very, very finite group of computing algorithms you can run for very specific problems. I would say less than 1% of all compute problems are addressable by quantum computing. And in fact, I would say will ever be addressable by quantum computing. So quantum computing is not the next.
All right, so we have D-Wave, IonQ, Rigetti. All right, that is a few stocks in the quantum sector that are on fire right now, and I do believe Martin Shkreli is short those stocks. So yeah, we'll get into that a little bit more about that in a little bit, but yeah, I believe he's short.
NVIDIA, it's really not even something exciting at all. And in fact, we have a really long way before it'll actually work at all. I'm not sure quantum computing will ever really work, to be honest, for anything commercially relevant. I've talked to people at Google, IBM, people who have worked at some of the smaller quantum computing companies, the leading quantum theorists in the world. It's just not going to happen. And I think that the excitement about something futuristic is admirable, but reality is something that does set in. I've been involved in.
So I have a tendency to believe and agree with him on that one. Seeing it through the lens of a trader, I do believe it's just sort of a hype train. I've seen these quantum names move before, and they took big moves, but they all came back down to earth. So I believe we're going to have a couple cycles like this where this continues to happen because none of us really know if how far quantum is out, and if it does, whenever it does come, if it's going to be something that we can make money off of, in so many words. So nobody's quite sure on that. So all we're looking at now is just a ton of speculation, and speculation typically can lead to a bubble. And when that bubble bursts, a lot of people are going to get in trouble who are long that position. And Martin Shkreli is betting on the long term that bubble's going to pop again. So I believe he's short, and I believe he's short in a big way. So.
Biotech my whole life, and CRISPR is an example of a futuristic technology. You can buy the best CRISPR stocks at cash value right now because reality did set in, and reality set in that we actually have to make drugs with this stuff.
CRISPR is a way to edit genes. So if in the future it was lauded as this future technology that you can maybe, for instance, change the color of your child's eyes or edit the color of the child's eyes, or maybe edit out cancerous genetics, things of that nature. And I think I believe in it, but he's the farmer, bro. So I'm gonna have to defer to him on that one.
It can't just be front page stories and fantasy. Eventually a year goes by and people say, well, where's the drugs? And it didn't happen with CRISPR. Same thing's going to happen to quantum. All of these stocks will drop 95%.
Quick follow up, and then I'm going to get Shai's counterpoint. We had the CEO of D-Wave come on recently, and he was saying they have commercially viable products they're selling or solutions. I know they have a professional services layer in addition to the tech. What do you say to companies like that are saying there is commercial viability?
So I'd say get a criminal lawyer. I went to jail for 7 years. I think that there's probably good.
So for those who are not familiar with the Pharma Bro, this is Martin Shkreli, Pharma Bro, the guy who raised the cancer and HIV drugs up, I want to say over 1,000%, and ended up being prosecuted for something else, I believe. But I believe the Senate kind of dug into his life after they realized what he was doing. He was kind of smug about it. So they found him some transgressions in his past, and used that to lock him up. So he did some time, and for about 7 years or so, like you said.
A good criminal lawyer in your area that you can consult with.
Okay, Shai, you're obviously on the other side of this, and we've talked before. Like you kind of believe there's broad applications of this, taking the other side. What's your viewpoint on all this?
I mean, I love that he's sticking his neck out for sure. I mean, this is the whole thing about what we do, why we do the show. We could be wrong, we could be right, but we're trying to provide angles to make everyone who's listening more curious and think a different way than what you're accustomed to. So clearly, I do believe that quantum computing is the next frontier after AI, and I disagree with the notion that it's a dud or it's not going to be ever hitting that frontier.
So I'm not familiar with who this gentleman is, but he's taking the other side of the argument. He's basically saying that once our historic way that we compute with PC or whatever, with the binary way, once we're going to hit a ceiling eventually, and then we're going to need quantum to get to the next level of computation, I believe. And I think he says it has something to do with also power consumption from all the GPUs and the big data centers and everything, that quantum is going to be sort of this way out of this extreme power consumption. I believe that's what his opinion is.
After AI, I think it's like a similar mentality where, like, even in the early internet days, like internet was dismissed in the early days in like the mid 90s because nobody was able to monetize a web page, for example. That's completely changed. Just look at e-commerce, or even GPUs were kind of dismissed like a decade or so ago because nobody can imagine a consumer needing that kind of scale compute on their devices. So I do think the question that matters right now is a little different than their duds, because today,
fun fact, just to throw this out there, I've been using NVIDIA GPU since, I don't know, I built my first computer, I don't know, late teens or something like that. And I didn't even see this coming with GPUs. I've been using NVIDIAs forever, and I bought AMD stock. I've always believed in AMD because it was a scrappy company, and for some odd reason, I just refused to buy any NVIDIA stock. So I missed the whole, GPU Bitcoin thing, and I've been using those GPUs, and I'm familiar with CUDA, at least in games and with video editing from well before the big GPU, bubble that we could potentially be in there as well. The NVIDIA, trajectory thing. So these things you can't predict, you know what I mean? Even if you use this stuff, sometimes you can't see it coming.
Today's reality, people might have a difficult time actually understanding why we need quantum computing, because it's not really hitting that wall today. But I do think eventually, I think a lot of people I talked in the space, especially at Future Equities in the past couple of days, like classical compute is already hitting walls today, and it's going to continue to accelerate, especially when you see all these AI data centers just starting to get funded, not just domestically, internationally, across the Atlantic Ocean. Sovereigns are starting to adopt it drastically. Billions of dollars will be spent on data centers for AI that eventually is going to hit a classical compute wall. So when it does, there has to be newer solutions. And I do think that you mentioned D-Wave. So I think
his thought process is sound. There's opportunity there. He's right about the data centers and them needing more and more power and being power hungry, to the point where even some of the bigger tech companies, specifically Google, I believe, is looking into sort of creating their own power companies. That's something you'd have to dig in a little further and to get the details. But his thought process in that regard, I think, is sound. But projecting how quantum could affect that may be a bit of an overstep.
Specific where I do think a lot of the quantum computing names out there are duds. I really do believe.
And I think we're all in agreements with that. So I'm just gonna move it on a little bit because this does get a little chippy, and I kind of want to get into some of that. It's kind of juicy stuff, you know what I mean? But again, the point of this whole thing is that for me, through my lens, my eyes, I see it as I think Martin Shkreli is short a lot of these names, and I think he's right to be short a lot of his name. The problem that I'm having with it is right now this quantum sector looks like it's heating up again. I've seen it heat up before and make big moves, like a whole basket of quantum stocks, because they all kind of move together. The last time I want to say it was Qubit that took off. This time it's RGTI. Looks like it's going to be the leader in that sector. The problem with that is even though you're short, and Shkreli's a smart guy, I think if he's entrenched and he refuses to get off of that short position, and these quantum stocks and sector continue to skyrocket, he's putting himself at a massive risk. And we've seen stuff like this happen before, like with the GameStop revolution, if you want to call it, and how some of the hedge fund guys got squeezed out because they refused to move off their position. So I think Shkreli's right overall. I think his timing is, remains to be seen if he's right on his timing, but it's something very interesting to keep our eyes on as traders, as people in the finance community, because it's a storyline that's got to play out one way or the other. So we'll keep our eyes on that. Let's move it forward a little bit. So Shkreli's like a super genius, right? He may be like the super villain, but he is a super bright guy. Sometimes I'll watch his live streams and stuff because, even if you pick up a few things from him, the guy's super bright. He does his work. He does the work. He puts the work in. He's highly intelligent. He knows about pharmaceuticals, and he basically tells this guy, like, the guy says, "Hey, well, there's this application for quantum in pharmaceuticals," and he's like, "Dude, what? No, there's not. I'm the pharma bro. You can't tell me that. And I've watched him, and he really knows his shit down to the molecular structures of drugs, how they affect the drugs, how they affect the human body. This guy is not. He's a sort of a jerk, but he's thorough and he's the real deal. Shkreli's finna go off on this guy, right? Because he's basically telling him, don't believe the hype. Like, you can't touch these things. This is all speculation. And what happens when speculators speculate too far and things get out of control? You call that a bubble, and bubbles have a tendency to pop. Okay. AI, I thought was a bubble initially until I realized, oh shit, there's application for this. Everywhere you look, oh, here comes, the data centers. Here comes, everything is kind of based on AI at this point. It is a buzzword as well, but it's a buzzword that has something behind it. There's some actual something there, behind it. You know what I mean? So.
You think Jensen is afraid of quantum?
So, Martin, you said something
Big bad
that
Jensen
I kind
Wong.
of want to get to, because you said
the elephant is afraid of an ant. Come on.
You said 30 years from now. So,
Yes.
is it? Which is it? Is it? It's never going to happen, or it's just
Nobody
not
knows.
I think
people say it's on?
I think Shores will happen. Quantum computing being useful as a computer for anyone other than a cryptographer.
And when he says cryptography, he's talking about your Bitcoin, your blockchain, and that's what I see it as. I do see it as, if it does become something, an application, it'd be for encryption. And I don't know where that goes and what the path to making money it goes there, and how much that could, I couldn't project it. So it's one of those things. Is like we don't know. So like, why is people putting money into it? Oh, because it's speculation, and it has a tendency to create a bubble, and bubbles pop. And he wants to make money. When that bubble pops, I believe he said he believes it's going to crash 95%. So, but again, if it goes up 300, 400 more percent, the whole, he could get shaken out of that position and get margin called. And we've seen it happen. Like, crazier things have happened. We've seen the GameStop thing. So, I believe Shkreli's right. I don't know about his timing, but I don't know as much as he does. So we'll watch it and see how it plays out. Very interesting to see how it plays out.
Seems like it'll never happen. Like
Okay,
not
but-
50,
but
not even 100 years from now, because the
it's in the
technical
realm of possibility that somebody building against the Shor's algorithm in 30 years could have a viable business, a booming business.
that doesn't
For
tell
trust
me
me, bro.
what
You're doing
algorithm.
trust.
Guys,
No,
You're doing
tell
trust me,
me-
bro energy the whole
I'm
time.
giving you.
Oh, starting to get a little chippy. So my guy over here, my guy over here is getting a little chippy, and he's about to lose this battle because you could tell he's frustrated because I believe he's out of his league when it comes to sparring with Martin Shkreli, the Pharma bro. I think he's out of his league there. He probably should have sat this one out.
giving you the floor. Tell me
No,
what
no, it
algorithm.
doesn't matter what I can say.
Stop
I can
for a
say the
second.
sky is blue, and you're not going to believe it because you're
want
going to say
you-
something about you heard in the back
want you
of
to
some dark
explain-
room.
I want you to explain what algorithm can you run on these quantum computers that is useful.
Today, it's
Any
very
day.
elementary.
Any day.
You don't understand the future constraint it's just going to have. You're talking about Shor's algorithm. Fine.
I don't know what that is. That's outside my scope, so we're gonna move on. And then through the lens of a trader, I also want to bring this up. I want to show you guys this. All right. When these type of sectors get hot, you want to keep your eye out for them. There's nothing like a hot sector when you're trading because some of the dumbest things will make the stocks move. And in that interview, Pharma Bro goes off on the guy about pharmaceuticals and quantum. He says there's no use for quantum and pharmaceuticals. It's all bullshit. Now, this is a trade that I took the other, I want to say this was Wednesday. This is a couple days ago. This is TNFA. So we traded through this area here, small size and a small account, and the news on this thing was just basically the fact that it changed its name from TNFA to QCLA, right? Which is quantum class computing, right? It's a pharmaceutical company, right? And Pharma tells us that there's no real case use for quantum in pharmaceuticals, especially now when quantum the technology isn't fleshed out. Right. So, but what you could trade is because this is all excitement. This is what we're looking for as what I'm looking for as a momentum trader. Is excitement in the name, a hot sector, and things like changing the name from TNFA to QLA sent this thing up over 150%. Now we've seen the same type of stuff in the initial blockchain movement when 2017, 2018 when blockchain was hot. I even saw an iced tea company put blockchain in their name and their stock just went through the roof. So you see things like this where they'll just associate the quantum name, whatever the hot sector's name into their stock, change the stock name, a press release with the hot sector, quantum, AI, Bitcoin, Torrent, not Torrent, I'm sorry, Bitcoin. And that's enough for algos to pick up on it and traders to pick up on it and trade it up higher. But typically when you see stuff like that, those companies will go and dilute the stock, do a secondary offerings, raise money, and the people who aren't just trading it, who are just hodling, right? They end up getting cooked because they lose value in their positions when they do these offerings. And I've seen it get really bad to the point where this thing could drop. So you have something up high on a hot sector news press release, it goes up 300-400%. People are on Reddit saying, "Hey, I'm gonna be rich," and then 2 minutes later, it's down 90%, and they've blown their account and lost a majority of the money they put into it. So it's a nasty thing. It's something to look out. It can look out for. Obviously, if you're short, it could be in your benefit. If you're long and you recognize the catalysts in the news and the hot sectors, and you can get there quick enough, it could be to your benefit as well. So that's just through the lens of someone who trades. Yeah, I recommend you guys go back and watch this. This is on Shkreli's page. Again, every now and then I'll watch Shkreli his lives. I know he may not be, like the most clean cut character, but the guy's a genius. And even if you pick up a thing or two from him, you can use that later on in a trade. You never know what you learn could be used in the trade. I've seen crazy things happen, and you see it and you're like, oh, and then you make that connection, and before you know it, you're in a decent trade. So I know some people, it's not their cup of tea, but it doesn't mean the guy's not brilliant. The guy's brilliant. All right, so you guys go check this interview out. I just wanted to touch base on this. I wanted to touch base on what I think about Martin Shkreli being short and quantum, and give an argument for both sides of why that could be in his favor or why that can get him in a lot of trouble. Like I said, we've seen these type of things before, like the GameStop situation. You know, if you're gonna hold firm in that short position, you know, it can get real bad and ugly for you. All right, so I think I'm gonna sign off here. I'll catch y'all on the next one. It's Mature to Blaze. Holla back and let me know what you think about Martin Shkreli being short. Quantum down here in the down here in the description. All right, I'll check y'all out. See y'all niggas. See y'all next time. Peace.